in your Jedi Arts by Count Jedi Arts.
Welcome to the Iron Seas. Today we're talking about soft versus hard magic because everybody's talking about it on the internet, debating, and really it was created to be this tool to help creators in their creation of whatever magic they're going to put into their world for their world building. And really it's just kind of confused people because I think, quite frankly, people kind of got carried away with this whole defining of hard and soft, and there's too many people just completely missing the mark of what the intentions of it is and kind of understanding it as well. We're going to go into examples of that. We're going to discuss that in detail here.
There's good places to start off, but most people say, like, it's as simple as it sounds. Soft, it has softer rules. Hard has more rigid rules, more defined outlines, so to speak. Boxes to contain the magic, basically.
And so typically what people think of soft magic, the go-to, as always, is Lord of the Rings, the biggest example. There's a lot more examples for hard magic systems, and that would be something like Brandon Sanderson's work, where it's almost not even magic at that point. You're almost just talking about a science in this aspect. But to me, the biggest difference between them is just how much is explained between the two magic systems. And I know people kind of argue. People say Lord of the Rings has hard magic systems in a overall soft magic system. And to that, I say you're retarded and it's nonsensical. I'm going to have another video talking about specifically the One Ring, but I can bring it up again here. But it's just straight up wrong.
I think a great example would be like Full Metal Alchemist. That's a pretty hard magic system, right? You know what it's going to do. 1 + 1 = 2. And I would add to that, equivalent exchange. I would add to that, from the outside perspective, when you're first starting off, maybe I would say it would look like magic systems become more scientific the harder they are, and the softer they are, it's almost like more whimsy. Traditional fairy tale magic, it tends to be softer. No explanation needed.
So hard magic allows for possibly easier stakes in your story rating. Since you know how things are going to react, you kind of have the entire armory of know-hows of how this magic is going to work and everything like that. So you know how crucial a point can be because of what magic could be used at a certain point. Where softer systems, because it's not really explained as much, allows lazy writers an opportunity to kind of write in things and as an excuse. And the thing is, that's why people say they prefer a harder magic system, because it prevents writers from taking cheap shortcuts like that. And Tolkien was an expert of not doing that, right? He allows a lot to be in the mystery. And specifically, when you look at the Hobbits, they're not magic users. The magic users in that are very much side characters. Gandalf, obviously, which is probably the biggest magic using character that's shown has the most screen time. We only get to see the magic from the perspective of a non-magic user, essentially, right? And that allows there to be that kind of mystery. And so the Silmarillion kind of goes into like how Gandalf was taught by the gods of the universe, and that's kind of how magic is trickles down. Well, it's also the magic used in Lord of the Rings is not very powerful, compared to a lot of other magic systems, and that's another way they're able to get away with a lighter magic system, softer magic system, and keep its stakes. Because at no point they're not going to hit you with something absolutely ridiculous, and if they did, then we would have problems with Lord of the Rings.
A fireball coming out of nowhere to affect this current situation is still meaningful in Lord of the Rings, which is fascinating because you get a lot of modern high fantasy settings where it's like they're casting fireballs willy-nilly and it really doesn't matter, and oh, by the way, the world is still medieval. Nobody's harnessed the power of these fireballs and created like a super combustion engine with no byproducts, because you don't have to burn fossil fuels. You just like cast fireball spells. None of that stuff. But I digress. I think this is why it's important for, on your point, just a little earlier, it's important for soft magic writers to not fall into the trap of inventing things, because this is just a common critique of fantasy as a whole, and even sci-fi is just inventing anything, right? Because it's just a fantasy world, right? Why don't you just invent a solution? And like, well, that is part of like what happens in a story, any story really, because you could just have two lovers. Well, why don't they just fall in love? Well, okay, then the romantasy story ends. How lame would it be in a sci-fi story if, oh dang, the only thing we need to do is blow up the planet? Guess what? We just discovered alien technology that can blow up planets, right? It's pretty lame when like a hole in the plot is just instantly filled like that. So for softer magic writers, it's important to avoid that, because it totally would seem like you just invented a new power. You just came up with something because you got lazy, like you were saying. And I think this is why modern fantasy writers kind of drift further and further into the hard, quote-unquote, magic side of things and get caught up in world building. We all know that's a modern problem, which is fine. There's worse problems to have.
I think the biggest problem with writing a soft magic system, and what people don't talk about, is the arbitrary line of what's an acceptable mystery, right? So think about this. The making of the One Ring is actually described and kind of told to you more than most typical fantasy worlds, actually. That's what you have a Maiar, Sauron, who is, sub-god level essentially, so magically powered, goes to Mordor. Mount Doom. And forges the in the fire that's place, he's able to forge the One Ring. So there is a little bit of explanation of how you do get that One Ring. Also, the fact that he was learned from the greatest magical smith. Now, it's not explained how that magical smith, Celebrimbor, is able to do what he does. But again, there was a mentorship that went into that. But again, like the One Ring, what is it made out of? Gold, right? They say gold, but I'm like, right. Okay, what magic aspects and the forging aspects were put into the One Ring? And everybody agrees this is the part of the mystery that's completely fine. They did unveil enough, right? Like I said, it's the arbitrary line, and I think that's with a lot of things. We just recently watched Ninja Scroll, and they're like, there's these 8 demons, right? And at first you're like they're demons, they have powers. Like, okay, I can assume they got it from some weird ancestry thing that's going on. That's an acceptable mystery. And then it starts to become an unacceptable mystery once you start to see non-8 demon people use magic stuff, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? You just broke that arbitrary line of mystery. And I think it's something that people are really missing out on, is keeping the magic in that mystery, but it's something that people, I don't think, are taking into account of trying to figure out where that line is for their book.
I think you touched on something really important with Tolkien, really quick before I forget it. It's fascinating how, and I think this is a mark of a good writer, and even a great writer, right? There's so many ways you can interpret it. So somebody who enjoys a harder magic system can interpret Tolkien as like, yeah, like what Batsaw said, they left all the clues there. I could tell you exactly. The ring is probably made of some sort of combination of like magical ore from the dwarves and stuff, and inscribed with some sort of magical runes. Like you said, he learned from the greatest magical smith in Middle Earth or whatever. It's ancient from the elves and stuff, and this is all far beyond mortal men. So those two things, he poured his cruelty, his malice, and all that. So all of his negative intentions go into the ring and makes it almost sentient. Like he needed Mount Doom, so the heat of a volcano, or maybe there's special ore there. You could go on and on from a hard magic perspective and explain technically why it works, or you could just be like, he made a ring. He's a higher being himself, so like no man can make it. No more explanation needed. There's something there. Who gives a fuck? And it's all about intentions, right? That's what it seems to be in Lord of the Rings. Because think about Gandalf's intentions and how he says the ring will affect him. He would try to use it for good, but whatever, that makes it soft. So a soft-minded magic enjoyer can look at that and just be like, no, it's all about intentions. And there's, what shade of gray is that? It's just who knows what'll happen. I can't explain the rules because it's just all about the user's intent or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows how much it'll corrupt you if you put it on, that kind of thing.
It's like hard magic. It's like people already have that figured out. Just have the energy source explain where it comes from, and how that whatever units of measurement you want powers each magic thing, and put the whatever restraints on that magic system. It's pretty straightforward. I think people understand that. It's soft magic where people are really getting confused. And again, it's about how much you're going to explain. I'm going to stick with that. But I think what people can do is look at horror, right? Once you're supposed to leave as much time before you actually reveal the creature, right? Like that sense of mystery of what the monster doesn't look like, the fear of the unknowing. You can take that, take the fear out of it, but take the mystery of the unknowing and throw that into your fantasy world, and you're going to create something that Tolkien was able to capture masterfully.
But mystery itself is magic, right? I think that's what it comes down to. Is if you can keep the mystery there, then there is a degree of magic. Like, I don't know if the magic system in Harry Potter was ever fully explained, but that largely just seems like, some people can do it, some people can't. Say magic words, go. And some people are stronger than others. Right?
Harry Potter is a great example, though, because it's a shitty magic system. It's really bad. Comparative to a lot, and it's a little bit nonsensical. And I mean, again, it's one of these things. In the first movie, it worked, but again, the more you went into it, it's just like, you guys got time travel. You're not going to use that anywhere else. It could be very useful.
Right.
Again, it's this complex art of what to do with this mystery. Again, because if they had a harder magic involved with Harry Potter, you might be able. It allows the creator to utilize your magic system easier as a tool to prevent yourself from writing plot holes into your story.
If we want to really reduce it to a binary, it's like soft would be like, I will grant you 3 wishes. There's no how, there's no why. It's just like the classic monkey paw, genie in a lamp, like whimsical, your fairy godmother, I would say. And then like the other side is like, explain it. And the more it's explained, the harder it gets. Like, okay, how does the 3 wishes work? Do you have to come up with components? What grants the genie the powers? Is there a way to abuse this? How does this affect the world? All these questions harden the magic system the more you explain it and the more you answer it.
Yeah.
So
again, it all comes down to explaining. How much is explained?
Because where's the line where you officially say, okay, this is a hard magic system? Because every magic system.
Very true. It's a very arbitrary line, and that's where it's like, the whole purpose is to kind of give you an idea. And I like Brandon Sanderson went into detail about the differences of hard and soft, and I think people just narrowed too much into that, and I think it's more counter to what people should be really thinking about when they're in their story. Like, oh, do I want a hard or a soft? It's like, no, just think about how much mystery do you want behind your magic system? Because at the end of the day, the magic has to work, right? If a hobbit puts on the One Ring, now the One Ring reacts differently to different people, but if a hobbit puts it on, it's probably going to turn him invisible. If it doesn't turn the one invisible, there better be an explanation of why that's not happening. But and again, watch my video on why the One Ring is not hard magic in a soft magic system. Instead of putting the binary of hard and soft, maybe just think what degree of explanation we want. And then there's a second line of explanation, and then there's what I don't even need to think about, right? Because again, with the One Ring, we don't need to know what metal's in there. That could be left up to the reader to just guess. But there is a point, depending on how important the magic is interacting with the plot, where you need to have a degree of explanation. That's kind of where you have to figure it out. All this stuff, it's an art. It's not an exact science.
Exactly. And whose perspective it's through, like you mentioned with Lord of the Rings, it's always through the perspective of people who don't understand Gandalf. Like Frodo, a magical wizard, right? But to Gandalf, he's probably like, yeah, Iluvatar's got my back. It's actually all him. Hail Iluvatar, right? and he just knows that he's channeling it and it's not actually him or something, or whatever the real explanation is. My world of Arche, I went out of my way to kind of make it really simple and kind of on the hard side, right? Because I had done all the recent research and all that, but I wasn't trying to lean fully into it, which is why I tried to keep it simple. But what ended up happening by keeping it simple and having, like, I'll just call it a well-defined mechanics, I'll say, maybe not fully explained, because I do try to do what you say and keep it a magical mystery, kind of, in the sense that the characters don't really understand. They just are literally like, this is magic, this is divine, whatever. But simply put, it's godless, so I can't just explain things away with gods, and magic is tied to objects. It's that simple. The objects have the magic.
Lord of the Rings, Tom Bombadil puts the ring on, doesn't turn invisible. Never explained to people.
Yep.
Does J.R.R. Tolkien know why the ring doesn't turn Tom Bombadil invisible? J.R.R. Tolkien probably does. But he's not telling the reader. That's the other thing. It's like, no matter what, if you have a magic system, or more than just like, this item is magical, blessed by whatever, you should probably figure out yourself how it works, obviously, and then you debate about whether or not you want to share all that information or how much you want to keep secret. Guys, thank you for watching. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch this far. And guys, please subscribe to the Iron Seas. Help us grow. We're very small. And catch us live Tuesdays, 9:30 Eastern. It's the greatest show that there is, especially on Tuesday nights, guys. Have a good night.